I got to tell you, pre-COVID, I traveled a lot. And so I would walk through the Dallas Love Field Airport and think, oh my goodness, we ought to be in here. Like, we truly ought to be here and in here. And you know how I am, Tex, kind of like world domination, takeover spirit. I'm like, we got to do a takeover of this airport. And of course, when I start to envision a complete takeover, having the Mavs out there, a whole new look, of course, you know who I thought about. There's one person who I know can carry out that vision for us, and that's, of course, you, Tex. So it was, thank you for like really leading and carrying out that vision. Why did you think it was a good fit for us?
I just think, it was an interesting time, obviously, with COVID hitting. And I just think it was something that we could do to obviously speak to the team spirit, but just also to uplift everybody, and their coming and goings. And it gave us an opportunity with the airport being down traffic-wise for a while, that when everybody got a chance to start to come back to travel, they got something that was warm and inviting and spoke to them from this city.
John Wooten, you're looking awful sharp in that blazer, man.
I got snookered. You guys put the snooker on me. I called and asked what was the dress, and you said business casual. And now I'm the only one that's business. You sitting there in a nice short sleeve shirt, and here I am all knotted up here with blazer and everything. So that
you were taught right all along what to wear, and that's good. Obviously, I didn't get nearly as good an upbringing as you did.
When you have played under Paul Brown and worked under Coach Landry, pretty much what you have on when you go out anywhere.
Yeah, sports writers, we're just lucky to be dressed at all. So hello, everybody. Welcome into this podcast of Lead with Love. We appreciate you spending some time with us. This is being presented by Dallas Love Field Airport. I'm Kevin Sherrington, the sports columnist with the Dallas Morning News, and I'm excited to be on the show today with a man I respect very much. I've known for a long time, Mr. John Wooten. He's a Texas native and one of the first Black All-American linemen in NCAA history at Colorado. He went on to a distinguished career in Cleveland, where he's a member of the Browns Ring of Honor. His resume since retiring in 1969 after 10 seasons includes management positions with the Cowboys, Eagles, and Ravens. In 2003, he became chairman of the Fritz Pollard Alliance, which advocates for the hiring and promotion of minority candidates in the NFL through public education and communication with NFL officials and management. So welcome to Lead with Love, John.
Hey, Kevin, first of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity to get back with you and visit on some real issues that, that are very important to all of us as a nation. So thanks much for inviting an old man in, okay?
Well, I'm getting older myself. Today's my birthday, John. I'm 65, so I'm officially in the era of getting federal
Medicare. No,
yeah, that's right. I'm all for it too. Let me just tell you that. So, John, with each episode of Lead with Love, different voices across North Texas talk about leadership and diversity and inclusion, and that's what this is all about: celebration of local culture and the differences in the community. So, I'm looking forward to this Q&A we're going to have here. This is going to be on Facebook and YouTube. So, leave your questions for John in the comment section, and we'll do our best to answer as many as we can. So to start this off right, John, let's tell our audience and listeners something they may not know about you. And I think this is very poignant and important. And that's that you were part of the Cleveland Summit, which was an activist meeting involving Jim Brown, Muhammad Ali, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and others. And can you tell us tell the audience and make us understand why the Cleveland Summit took place and the significance of it at the time?
Well, back up just a little bit, and we got to remember that in 1967, Muhammad Ali was then known as Cassius Clay. You know, he didn't change the name until afterwards and so forth. But the reason why the Cleveland Summit was, I think, what it needed to be and should be, was the coming together of, quote, Black athletes that supported each other and what was going on in each other's lives. And it goes way back. We had met Cassius Clay, Muhammad Ali, the champ, when he first fought Sonny Liston back in 1960 there in Miami. And we were in Miami because back then they played a second round playoff game between the runner-up from the East and the West Conference in Miami. The champ was down there, Cassius Clay, to fight Sonny Liston. And even though we were staying over on the beach in Miami, we're hanging out at a hotel called the Sir John Hotel. And that's where that relationship started. And Jim, and of course, being the kind of guy he is, he and Muhammad sort of gravitated to each other. And if you go back and notice that picture, if you look into the back wall, you'll see the letters NIEU, Negro Industrial Economic Union. Jim and I put together this organization for working primarily in the inner cities throughout the country. And that was, we headquartered in Cleveland and office in New York, Harlem, Washington, D.C., Kansas City, Oakland, and Los Angeles. So when the champ did not step forward there in Houston in 67, Herbert Muhammad called Jim and said, hey, the champ needs some help. And Jim called me and said, get the guys together. And all of those guys you see in that picture, we got together and met with the champ. Many of us had already done our military obligation, National Guard or whatever. And we were going to see what we could do to help him. And after 4 or 5 hours of hard discussion, I mean, real hard, why don't you want to do this? You could be in special service, all kind of things. The champ never moved away from, I am an ordained Black minister of the Nation of Islam. I'm a conscientious objector. I don't believe in killing anyone, nor do I want to be associated with an organization that kills people. And he never left that. And after 4 or 5 hours, we came to the conclusion that we could support him on this. And that's what we did there on June there in 67, standing with him. They had already taken his championship from him, and they're also taking his passport. So they really, Kevin, we intend to put him in jail as a draft dodger. And this is what we were able to prevent. Okay?
And tell me a little bit about the pushback from that, John, because I can imagine at that time what that was like. And of course, I was a kid growing up, and I remember when all that happened. And I know growing up in the South, as I did, the reaction from people down here.
Well, the pushback primarily was that, everybody else goes to the military and do their obligation and so forth. And of course, at that time, there was a draft and everything else was going on in terms of you're going to the military. But the point is, there was such a thing as a conscientious objector, that you could be that. And this is what he convinced us that he was, that he simply, and of course, his life lived it out from there on in. You saw this. You saw that it wasn't that he was against the U.S. or anything. He just wanted a different kind of life. And I think he ended up proving that in the years to come and so forth.
He certainly did that.
But,
he went from being a guy that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
He went from being a guy that was a pariah to a lot of white people to one of the perhaps the most beloved athlete on the planet by the time he died. And I think the reason he did that was because of the life he lived. And when people saw who he was and what he was really about, I think that made all the difference.
The thing that was just unbelievable is that people, he was calling the rounds when he was going to end the fight and all that. And everybody think, well, this is braggadocious. But the guy was just truly an outstanding athlete, and he could call the rounds. He had the speed, he had the power, but above all, when you were with him straight up, face to face, you didn't see that kind of stuff at all. He was as humble as any guy you ever want to be around, But this was his show that because he wanted to be what he was, the best fighter ever known in the business, and that's the way he went out.
That's exactly what I've heard from everybody I never had the privilege of talking to him, but everybody I've ever known who was around him was that was a lot of show. There was a lot of show, and he was selling his show, and for perfectly good reason. But personally, people I know from all walks of life said he was one of the finest people they ever met.
No question. No question.
Let's talk about some other things. Let's talk about respect for diversity and inclusion. Barring any last minute changes, there will only be 3 black head coaches at the start of the 2021 NFL season. And a big majority of assistant coaches, management, and executives will not be people of color. Why is it so important for people of color to be represented at all levels of the game?
Well, let's back up a little bit. You said it earlier when you talked about the Fritz Pollard Alliance. You talked about the word minority. And therefore, when you put the word minority, and I can't tell you how hard we worked to make sure that Ron Rivera got a chance to be a head coach in this league and Robert Saleh over at the Jets. So, you got to put those guys in the Fritz Pollard corner in terms of where we're going. And of course, this year you also have 5 general managers. Now, we've been as high as 8 head coaches, minority head coaches, 8 general managers. And then the owners start to play a game on us, okay? Because the Rooney Rule says that if you have an opening at general manager, head coach, and so forth, you got to interview minorities, right? At least one minority. So what they start doing is going down the hall, interviewing one of their staff people who they knew. And this is why it was very, very sort of heartbreaking, really, because they had voted 32-0 that they would do this. Yet all of a sudden they're going down the hall interviewing young blacks or minorities on their staff, knowing full well, Kevin, they had no intentions of hiring these people. And that's hurtful. And consequently, they have put a little bit more tooth into it, talking about the Rooney Rule. and to the point where all the way from president all the way to directors, you have to interview minorities. And there are a ton of minorities out here as assistant head coaches, director of player personnel, director of pro scouting, that are more than capable of, being representative on this team. And that's why it is so important. I played in the league in college and in high school. And I never had a black coach in the locker room on our side. And I just felt that that shouldn't be. Now, I never wanted to coach a day, honestly. As much as I love the game, I have no desire to coach.
You're too smart for that, John.
Well, but I remember talking to Coach Landry extensively at a couple of Pro Bowls when Coach Landry was the coach there. And he talked about the fact that what we have to do to try to do this. And that's why I take my hat off to the Cowboys. They allowed me to be a part of that when I came here in 1975 to work for the Cowboys. So all of a sudden we're getting Al Levan and other black coaches into the Cowboys, and of course, all of this was part of what Coach Landry's opening up his mind to wanting to have this,
One of the things about the Rooney Rule that strikes me, John, is that it would be easy to say, and just as you cited a few minutes ago, for owners to skirt these kinds of rules. Oh yeah, we'll interview somebody, then we'll just go ahead and hire whoever we want. But it seems to me that one of the things that's happening because of the Rooney Rule is that these guys are getting interviewed, and they're getting multiple interviews across the country, and if people in ownership and management levels didn't know these guys before, now they're getting to know them, and they're getting an idea of who they are and what they are. And I think whatever might have been the intention or thought process of management before, I think there's no question to me that it's changed the mind of people about these candidates in the field of candidates. I know, and I know that in the NFL, it's a copycat business. And if something works, then all of a sudden everybody wants to do it, right? And that's one of the things that's important about getting minorities the opportunities, because if these things work out, then I think that you're going to see a lot of things happen that are going to make it possible in the future.
And in all fairness to the league has done a great job. I mean, they have the quote Bill Walsh Fellowship, where black coaches or minority coaches can go to the various training camps of the NFL, and then they have the non-Wooten internship for the scouting and the personnel side of it. There are a lot of great jobs in the NFL, not just playing out there on the field, and that there are a lot of people that really have that ability to be able to work and make things better. And that's everything, Kevin, is simply being fair to everybody. You've just got to have that commitment that you're going to give everybody the opportunity to be what he or she, and I use that word very openly, because we fought. When we were fighting for women to have the same opportunities. And all of a sudden you see that now. Even there at the game day officials, Sarah Thomas and others have moved into it, because there are a lot of more jobs than just playing out there on the field that can be very worthy, and people should have that opportunity.
So we talked about the Fritz Pollard Alliance, but we haven't told everybody who Fritz Pollard was, the first black head coach at that time in pro football in 1921. So John, let me just ask you first of all, who was Fritz Pollard?
Well, Fritz Pollard was an outstanding athlete and student, academic, and so forth. He went to Brown University out of Chicago, Lane Tech. As a matter of fact, they are now naming the field after him. there at Lane Tech there in Chicago, and was just an outstanding player. And, and could play it all. He quarterback, became the head coach of the Akron Pros in 1921. As a matter of fact, the team went undefeated, but they had a tie in a 12-game schedule. We knew this when we were putting together our organization, and that's why we took the name. And what we were able to do that's just really outstanding is to showcase to the committees so that he was inducted into the Hall of Fame there in Canton in 2005. So we paid him back for the use of his name, But the reason why we took his name, Kevin, was we wanted the world to know who this man was. And he was, as I said, not only was he an outstanding football player, but he was an outstanding businessman, academics and so forth. And, when you go to Ivy League, you got to have a little bit something going up there. That's where he went and played. And he was the first Black to play in the Rose Bowl and the first to beat Harvard and Yale in the same season at Brown. So the guy was everything we were looking for, and that's why we took the name.
So it's 100 years later since he was the first Black head coach in pro football. What do you think is the future for Black head coaches and minority coaches and women, even as coaches on staff?
Well, I just think it's open. The thing about it, and, we got to give a lot of credit to Commissioner Goodell. He has really been a champion for openness. You know what I mean? I went to the National Football League in '91 after Jerry Jones fired me here. And it wasn't three of us there in the league office in '91, okay? You go to the league office today, and it looks like the United Nations. That's what it looks like. And and I know if the lead horse is doing it, then everybody's going to follow. And that's what he's done. I take my hat off to him. I tell him all the time that, we're just forever grateful and thankful, that they're still pushing forward with Troy Benson being where he is, Executive Vice President of Football Operation, which means that technically on Sunday he runs the league, because the game day officials, everything comes under him. And he's a former player and so forth there for us. That when I was at Philadelphia, we made the trade he was a New Jersey kid, went to Wisconsin, and we knew he was a good football player, and we brought him in with us there in Philadelphia back in when I was at Philly.
To your point about why it's important for the lead horse to be doing these kind of things, John, in my career, I've written about concussions with athletes and the effects of them since the early '80s. It was always a concern of mine, and seeing athletes and both the short-term and long-term impact. And, that just got nowhere. And there were a lot of other people who were doing that for a long time as well. It really wasn't until the NFL started looking into this and making it a public issue, and they were showing that they were going to study this type of thing. And I'm not saying the NFL has done everything it should, hasn't done everything by the former players as it should, I don't believe. But I give them, as you said, I give Roger Goodell all the credit in the world. Ever since the NFL started these things, they became a trickle-down effect started, where you saw colleges starting responding to that. You saw high school started responding to that kind of thing. And so that's why it's important, I think, that when we talk about hiring in the NFL, hiring Black coaches, hiring Black GMs, that these have the same kind of impact at the college level and in the high school level. I think you'll start to see more of that kind of thing happen. Yeah, that was the lesson I took from the NFL stance on concussions.
There's no question that the NFL is the lead horse in all of this. I was just thrilled this past year when Roger came out and said that we were wrong with the Kaepernick situation. He and I had that discussion before, and I told him that very pointedly that Kaepernick did not violate one single rule in the NFL. There was nothing in the rule in the NFL that said you have to stand or whatever. You can't kneel as it relates to the American flag. And then secondly, there's nothing in the Constitution that says this. Think about all the guys that burned flags and did everything else here. You know, you're not probably old enough to remember all that. But the point is, that was the position that we took. And for him to come out, Roger, a year ago and say we were wrong to do this, it just opened up. Now look at our young, I am just thrilled to see not just the blacks, but white players and everybody else speaking out for equal justice and opportunities and so forth for everybody. Because that's where we have to go, Kevin. If we're going to be the nation that we want to be, we have to open it up. We give everybody the chance. What our Constitution and the Declaration of Independence says, the opportunity to be what you can be as an individual. And you start that by respecting each individual's ability and their right. Because first of all, we're all child.
John, we want to talk about, I want to go back and look at something that in the intro we saw there, that art installation there at Love Field on the Garage C Level 2. That was very cool. St. Marshall does a lot of great things with the Mavericks these days. I'm proud of what she's been able to accomplish. What did you think of that?
Well, I've never met, I'm a great fan of her. She was going to a house. I know what it means to be, run and handle and so forth. And I just have the great respect for what she's done. I like the fact of going to an airport, driving up to where you want to be, park, get out, go in, and you leave, leave and fly back. And you don't have to worry about whether you're at gate A or whether you're at terminal C or in terms of where your car is, That's the thing I love about it. But let me tell you another little thing about Kevin, about Love Field, why it's so important to us, to me personally. In 1960, when the Cowboys came into the NFL as an expansion team, the only place in this city that we could stay as a team together was there at Love Field at the Ramada Inn. The only place. The other teams that came into Dallas, the black players stayed with black families. But we stayed at the Ramada Inn. As the Cleveland, very special place to me because of that. And that's why when I get an fly in out of Love Field, I'm going to always take it because it just means that much. Okay.
I'm with you there. I'd rather fly to Love Field than anywhere. That's why I moved over here where I live, so I can be closer to. I'm closer to Love Field than I am DFW. There's no question about that. All right, we're going to do some rapid fire questions here, John, and I'm going to answer these with you here now. This first question here might be a little difficult, but I'm going to try to help you out on it if it is. What is your walk-on song and why that song? I don't know if you have a walk-on song, John, but if you do, what is it?
I do. And it's Barbra Streisand and singing "Who Love People Are the Luckiest People in the World." That is my walk-on song.
How about that? Now, I would not have predicted that for you, John, because I'm going to say my walk-on song would be September by Earth, Wind, and Fire, because my wife and I are big fans of Earth, Wind, and Fire. We like everything they do. It's the happiest music on earth. and September is my walk-on song. So that's why I like it. It's happy. All right, what's your favorite restaurant in Dallas, and what do you love to get when you go there?
Well, if I had to stay in Dallas, I would say Nick and Sam's.
Okay.
But over here in Arlington, down from the stadium, there's a place called the Mercury Chop House. And I am a big pork chop guy. As Bill Russell said to the champ there in 67, champ, if you can get the Honorable Elijah to relax that rule on that chop and rib, I'll join you tomorrow. That broke up the meeting.
I bet it did. I did not know that. Well, that's why he was a world leader right there. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
If I'm going to say Sevy's in Dallas. It's a great restaurant. A great Jim Severson, the owner, a good friend of mine. He does a fantastic job. They're great service. They're just terrific. We were there last night, as a matter of fact. All right. Here's a question for you. If you had to park, take a ride share, or get a ride from a friend or family to Love Field, which would you choose?
I'm going to drive.
Yeah?
I want to be able to drive right up there and park, get out, go in, come back. I don't want to have to be waiting on anybody and have to call anybody. I want to go right to my car and get in there and drive home. I'm an old man. I like to do things.
I think if you're an old man or a young man, woman, whatever you are, you know, if you can get out of that and walk out there and walk straight to your car in that parking garage, that is the way to go. I'm with you on that.
Exactly.
All right, that's time now for our live Q&A. And if there's anybody out there with any questions or anything, that we'll take that now, unless we have run out of time. And now I'm seeing that we probably have. Well, here's one question here. It's a question for John. What do you think about the way the Dallas Mavericks are addressing diversity and inclusion?
Oh, I'm a big Dallas Mavericks guy. As I said, I just think that they're going about it the right way. I'm loving the way I'm seeing the whole thing progress. Hiring Cynthia Marshall has just been outstanding. I think it just turned the whole community toward, being the Mavericks.
I'm with you on that, John. All right. They said now we got one more question here. This is from Dawn. She says, what do you think can be done to highlight the idea that a coach or other career in professional sports is an attainable goal?
I think that in all sports that people are more conscious of diversity and inclusion. You go back and it comes from the leadership of the ball clubs, really. And that's why we give such credit to Dan Rooney and so forth, and Taggable as well, because of the fact that when, quote, Johnny Cochran made the statement that if you don't want to litigate, if you don't want to negotiate, then you must litigate. And rather than going into a court battle, Commissioner Taggable immediately put together a committee, and that's the way the league runs on committees. And of course, they put Ambassador, I call him Ambassador, but Dan Rooney in charge. And from there on, as I told Johnny and Cyrus back then, we have just won. And it's proven just that.
No question about that. And listen, I want to just reemphasize for our listeners, the people who tune into this podcast, John, what a great career you've had. You could have stopped a long time ago and you would have had a great career. You have done a lot of things for our, not only for the NFL and for current and former players, but just for the people of this nation. And I know that you hold my feet to the fire occasionally, and I appreciate that. And we've had discussions about that, and they've all been good and all been very productive. And you certainly have made me think, and I appreciate it.
Well, Kevin, you do a great job. I read your column every day, every word. You know what I mean?
I can't even get my wife to do that, John.
Welcome aboard. We all
appreciate
have
it.
those same problems.
Yeah,
But-
yeah, we may have that. You're right.
But I totally enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you thinking of me to come on and be with you on this. It's very meaningful to me, and this just shows that I'm trying to do the right thing. And when I get this kind of response from people like you, that they want to share their time with me and give me this type of accolades, really, you know, when you say, come on and talk with you about it. Appreciate you, partner.
I appreciate you too. It's for the good of all of us. All right, everybody. Listen, don't forget to check out every episode of Lead with Love wherever you get your podcast and share it with the people you love. You can head over to Apple Podcasts or leave a review and give it that coveted 5-star rating. Support your airport. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you.